Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked, and today I'm going to be doing a similar video to one that I just uploaded where I talked about the top 5 games over the years from 2022, so last year at the time of this recording, all the way back to 2016. And in that video, I basically looked at the games that I proclaimed as being the best of that year, 5 all the way to number 1. And I talked about if I even still had them, what I currently think about them, because I wanted to run a very, very small sample size that I have available. And I wanted to see, if I still had them, what I thought of them, if I thought they were still good, and it wasn't just kind of a, flash in the pan game, or, oh, I played it, so many times that year in 2016, but haven't touched it since, or something like that. Well, apparently that video did really well, and a lot of people liked it. And they said they wanted to see the bottom half, and that's what this video is. So I'm gonna be doing something extremely similar, where I talk about the other half of the game, so 6 all the way to 10. I'm not including the honorable mentions because they didn't really make the list. So if you haven't seen the other video, go check that out, or if you haven't seen either, then you can watch this one, and then you can basically rewatch all those top 10s, but with a little bit more in-depth after many, many years, especially when we get all the way down to 2016. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about number 10 from 2022, so last year. At the time of this recording, it's September of 2023, and that's just going to make me sad when I look back and realize so much time has passed. But number 10 in 2022 is actually a game that I no longer own. And I recently got rid of this one, and that is called My Father's Work. So My Father's Work is a worker placement game, storytelling elements, uses an app to kind of direct the way that the story goes. And this one, I got rid of it mainly because I hadn't really played it, and the many times that I did play it, I always felt like I was kind of hitting the same beats. Because while this game is incredibly thematic, and it's a theme that I think works really well, and they also include different stories you could do. There was, one you could do about the witch trials, one you could do about war, and there's a third one that I forgot. But to hit those narrative elements, to be like, oh, I'm making different decisions, or different decisions are happening to me, or different events are happening to me, you have to make those different decisions. And sometimes those always aren't optimal, to actually win the game, because it's still a competitive game. And that contrast kind of made me not keen to go out and play it. If someone were to ask me to play, I absolutely would. I think the game is still very good and did a lot of things really well. But to me, it's okay, I either want a worker placement game or I want a narrative storytelling game. I don't really want them both. So, already off to a bad start, because I know in my other video there were very, very few that I no longer had. But here we are, and I'm going to be keeping track of the games that I no longer own. Put DO, don't own. Alright, number 9 for 2022 is a game that I need to play way more of, and that is Wayfarers of the South Tigris. The first one in the trilogy from Garfield Games, the South Tigris series. I believe the second one is going to be coming out relatively quickly. I'm just curious, I can't remember what it was called. South Tigris, Scholars of the South Tigris. Now this one I do still own, and it is fantastic. I have not dived into this as much as I have the West Kingdom series, specifically Paladins and Viscounts, but this one feels like a lot meatier, almost kind of a higher barrier to entry. I feel like I can teach Paladins and Viscounts more than I can teach this one, just because there's so many icons and so many different things going on whenever you're exploring land or exploring the sea or exploring the skies, and taking all that into account with your worker placement and moving along not really a tech tree, but it's this track. There's this board in the middle. Here we go, this one. like moving along to get bonuses that way. There's a lot going on in this one, hence why I feel like I need to play it a lot more. But yeah, it's solid. It's a really good one. Um, doesn't beat Paladins or Viscounts for me. I think both of those are just slightly less complex, but yet still incredibly deep. Um, but this one would be like the next step. So yeah, woo, still own the game. Number 8 of 2022 is another game that I do still own, and this one really took me by surprise, and that is Carnegie. Carnegie is phenomenal, and it wouldn't look it if you're taking a look at this sweet ass picture. Like, wow, Andrew Carnegie is that his name? Pretty sure it's Andrew. Yeah, it's like, man, everyone admires him and talks about him all the time, but the way that this game works just is a brilliant design. I don't think I've ever played a game that quite had such little like scoring throughout the game and then all of your points come at the end, which makes thematic sense. It's like, yeah, I mean, he wasn't really renowned throughout his life, but boy, at the very end when he was trying to give everything away, it's like, oh man, he's a hero. And then kind of that reflects the points, very low points for accomplishments throughout your life, and at the very end, that's whenever it matters, and you're like, cool, like it's over. Uh, but yeah, like this one just has a lot of like it rewards long-term planning, very much so, more than a lot of other games, and has quite a few strategies to it. So I don't play this one all the time, but every time I do, it's like, yeah, no, I remember why this was on the list. So that's my number 8, Carnegie. Number 7 is another game that I still own, and this one's actually getting some support. Probably, I think it'll probably go on GameFound this year, and then probably, hopefully, come out next year. And that is Perseverance. That I didn't spell correctly. There we go. Perseverance. Yep. Perseverance, episodes 1 and 2. Uh, this one is by Mind Clash, and at the time of this recording, again, I'm going to be playing a most likely 10 times heavier Mind Clash game called Voidfall. And this one is very intriguing because both the episodes being lumped together, and I believe I've done a video on every single game. Yes, I believe every single game I have done a video for that I will talk about today. So you can always go check out my discussion or my run through if I have it of that game. And Perseverance is very interesting because of the 2 episodes. So episode 1 feels like it's like, hey, by the way, here's the way that the game works. Like it's gonna teach you a lot of the elements, while also still being a really good game. It has like kind of a not narrative story, but there is a theme to it where you crash land on the island and then dinosaurs are going to come and attack you. And then you play episode 2, which is like, okay, yeah, you've built up a base and like a safe haven, so now you're going to go out and explore the island. And it takes a lot of the things that you learned in episode 1 and then applies them over into episode 2, but adds a new twist. And I think they did that really well. But episode 2 was just so much better. It's like, man, would I ever really want to play episode 1 again? Probably. Like it's a pretty good tower defense game. This one is very unique. Not a lot of good dinosaur games out there. The 2 that come to mind are this and Dinosaur Island / World. And, well, I guess Raptor also. Raptor's good. But this one's really cool. I think Mind Clash knocks their games out of the park, and I'm excited for episodes 3 and 4. And then the last one in for 2022 is one of the best pirate games I have played, and that is Dead Reckoning. So Dead Reckoning is John D. Clare's like kind of worker placement 4X, pirate game that utilizes his card crafting system in such a cool way. I mean, like the card crafting thing that Mystic Vale started with John D. Clare is so neat, like such an awesome twist on deck building, and this one just kind of hits the nail on the head for what I want out of a pirate game. Like it has I mean, it has really cool combat, and it has mercantile, it has exploration, it has shipbuilding, and they released these. What were the expansions called? Yeah, Letters of Mark, and that's not what they were called. Sagas. Yeah, they had that's actually the newest one, but they had these sagas that kind of had a narrative element to it. I haven't actually touched these, but that is another way that you can play the game. I will say the solo mode for Dead Reckoning, I remember not being too great. But yeah, like I even like the only random element is really this combat, but I feel like you have a lot of agency, especially with like powers and things that you can do. And and yeah, and he announced that he's gonna be doing another expansion, but it's not a saga. It's just more content, just like kind of what I love, like the expansions that I love, where you can you just add more. So more islands to explore, more ship parts, more things to really make your deck unique. That I'm very excited for. So that was number 6, Dead Reckoning. In 2022, we're off to a good start. Out of the 5 games I talked about there, I only don't own My Father's Work. The rest I do still own, albeit I don't play them all the time. But that's kind of just the thing about being a board gamer. If you like using the stuff you spend your money on, do not get into this hobby. Or get into the hobby, but don't ever get on this website. Don't ever get on this website. Don't get on Facebook groups. Don't get on anything that ever reminds you that you're in the hobby, because then you will always feel like you don't make enough. Like these are words of wisdom. Just be like, I don't have enough. I can't back every single game on Kickstarter. I can't play every single game. Oh my god, my life is slipping away. Yeah. So take it from me. Just go to a hobby store every now and then. Be like, oh, that one looks fun, and then buy it, and then you'll play it all the time. 2021. We're going to start out with number 10 that I have played relatively recently. Whenever you talk about, when any gamer says I played it recently, just know they played it that year, which is recent. But this one, I'm seeing a lot of people start to like ask for this game, which is surprising because it felt like it was such a small one that came out. It's by Roxley Games that did Dice Throne, which is way more popular, and Santorini as well. This was a sleeper one for me. Like it has that psychedelic, I always say Rage 2 or Borderlands style game where like everything is neon, and it's a 1v1 card game that you have these camp. Where are they? Yeah, you have like these camp cards that are like your special abilities, and you have different various workers, or not workers, cards that you play down for special abilities, and your whole goal is to try and destroy your opponent's camps. Um, so many different camps and different strategies you can aim for, and the biggest thing that I was surprised that made me actually like this is you have a shared deck. And years ago, I did a review over Memoir 44, and I, said I don't like Memoir 44 because of this very reason, that you share a deck, where it's like, oh man, I wish I could have that card, but you keep drawing it, stuff like that. And yet somehow it works in Radlands. I think it's because in Radlands it's not a skirmish game, so I don't have things on the board I can't ever touch. So whatever the cards come my way, that's just what I have to work with. Which you can make the argument I should do for Memoir 44, but I don't wanna. Yeah, this one is just cool. I really, really hope that Roxley like does some support for this. Like I'm guessing it didn't do all that well. The designer Daniel Peachnick, come on man, come on, make an expansion, make more content for this, because it's a good one. So yeah, I still own it. Number 9 for 2021 is this one. I need to play it like one more time, because I remember it being so good whenever I played it like that year, and that's Philosophia Floating Worlds. I'm This one had just so much going for it in terms of uniqueness. One, it's a gorgeous game. The artwork, it's feudal Japan. Tons of different ways to like gather victory points, and it had two really neat things that I think kind of elevated this out of like all the games I had played that year. One, it's meant to be simultaneous. Like everything that you're doing in the game is simultaneous until like you're trying to go after like, oh, I want to go hunt that monster or I want to take that item. Then you look at the turn order track. But other than that, you can do everything that you want to do. Like you're trying to find like opponents, like locations, kill monsters, get items. There's a lot like centered around this like feudal Japan setting. And the other thing that this game had wasn't in the actions that you could do. Whenever you drew your cards, you had to split them up into like a I pick you choose kind of thing. So that added another element of decision making that was just really cool. I need to go back and play it because I'm whenever you look back at this and you're like, oh man, that was a number 9, interesting. Like, I guess in terms of making a top 10 for that year, you kind of, the ones at the back, you start to see, well, that is why it's number 9. But yeah, like a couple of years ago, that game was just super cool, and I can tell you, haven't played it since that year. So, I still own it though. I do still own this game. I tried to play the other one, like Philosophia Dare to Be Wise. I didn't play it. Like I had both. I got them both at the Kickstarter, and I was like, I was setting it up, and I'm like, this doesn't look as good. You know, I'll just stick with the feudal Japan one. So yeah, that was my number 9, Philosophia Floating World. Number 8 would certainly be higher in 2021 at this point because I have actually played through a full campaign, and that is Role Player Adventures. This one I've done a full series on the channel for, one of the few that I finally finished. That felt good. And this is just great. Like Role Player Adventures is the perfect lead up from Thunderworks games with their role player series, like their D&D game of like, hey, roll up a character. Okay, that was kind of neat. That's cool. What do I do with it? Nothing. And then their expansions were like, well, now you can go fight monsters. Boom, yes, cool. And then now you can have fiends and familiars. All right, yeah, this is more content. And then this came out. It's like now you can actually take them and use them in a quest system. This is fantastic. Like it's broken up also in a very succinct way, like 10 missions or 10 scenarios that are connected, but they're still like individual modules almost that while it's not like this full-blown RPG, it's going to give you one of the best experiences, I think, in a D&D style setting. Now, I have only done the entire campaign once, so, like, there's that. But, like, I do eventually want to go back and make different decisions, see just how branching the story actually goes, because you do get to see the consequences of your actions later on. So it's like, okay, like how much is that? What's that tree look like? But yeah, this one would certainly be higher, but I think it was only at number 8 in 2021 because I hadn't finished it. So still really good, and I do still own it. So number 7, I don't own anymore. And this one kind of I mean, I'm not upset that I don't own it anymore. Like, I don't think there's ever been a game that I've gotten rid of that I'm like, man, I really wish I had that, because then I'd be talking about how much I do own it. But that is Solomon Kane. And before you start freaking out and you're like, yes, fuck Mythic Games, sell everything. That's not why I sold it. I didn't sell it because I'm some activist against the practices of businesses. I don't care that much. I just won't purchase from them in the future. That's like the people who like burn jerseys. It's like, you already gave them your money. What are you doing? Just don't buy anymore. That's how they start seeing like their profits go down. Anyway, tangent. Solomon Kane, I got rid of just because it was cumbersome to get to the table. I have so many narrative-driven campaign games that I'm trying to play, like, because I have video games that I want to play as well. So this one just kind of didn't make the cut. And because there were so many mistakes, I know they did an errata pack and fixed stuff, but it's like, did they get all of it? How much am I going to be leaning into an online forum thing to understand what's going on? It it just became cumbersome. I still think this game is great though. This has such a cool uh, system to it with like Solomon Kane being the. I wish I could find like here we go. There's Solomon Kane. You can at least look at the picture with him just kind of being a mindless drone almost, and the four virtues are dictating what he can do, and you use that through a bunch of dice that determine actions. It's very neat, and they had a lot of content for this. Like all these expansions had these really big books to it, and some were just one-time, stories, and then others had multiple parts to it. This game had a lot of content, but I just never wanted to go in and actually touch it just because it was whenever I play a narrative campaign or a narrative story, I want to be engrossed in the story as much as possible. I don't want to be in a spreadsheet trying to figure out what translation errors they fucked up on. So yeah, that's the reason why I got rid of it. But if you own it or if you're looking to get it, I still would highly recommend it. I do think that this one is a cut above the rest of them, but keep in mind it is Mythic Games. So that was number 7. The number 6 is one of the games I still talk about, and I have played this game recently. I actually got someone to buy this game. Oh, also, I did get a buddy to buy everything for Role Player this past Gen Con in 2023 because he loved it so much. It was a guy I did the campaign with. Go watch my campaigns. They're fun. They're hilarious. They're awesome. Shameless plug. Anyway, Mantis Falls was my number 6 for 2021. Would probably be higher at this point. 7.3. That is an injustice. That makes me sad, especially because this game is so unique and so different from the rest of them. And then you just get dog shit games that get 9s whenever no one's played them. Yeah, as you can clearly tell, I gave this game a 10 out of 10. It would probably be a 9, honestly, out of the gameplay, but the way that they made this game actually work gets it an extra point. This is a 2 to 3 player hidden trader game, and most of those games require lots of players to make them really sing. And the atmosphere of this game, the knowledge of this game, the actual difficulty of being like the trader or not is just so much better than a lot of these that I have played. The theme is that you've witnessed like some murder or some horrific crime, and you go into like this witness protection thing, and you have to go meet with someone at a diner and then get out of town. But you're unsure of, this is like a 2-player system, so you're unsure if the person you're with is actually the person that you were supposed to meet, or if they've already been taken out and been replaced by someone that actually is part of the mob and they're actually going to kill you. Like, that theming alone is awesome. They have a soundtrack for it that is exquisite, really broody noir music, and I think it works so well. At 2 and 3 players, the third player kind of rotates on kind of if they're involved in dilemmas, and yeah, it's just excellent. So I think Distant Rabbit Games and Adrian Carahart like really killed it on this one. So that was my number 6 for 2021. All right. So for 2021, I only have one game that I no longer own. So we're off to a pretty good start, I think, with 10 games. So 8 out of 10 I do still have. Then we go into 2020, the year of COVID-19. And number 10 is a game I do still own, but I never play. This game is like I see so many people selling this game and no one buying it, which is still kind of wild because the game's not bad. It's just not like amazing, and that is Alter Quest. So Alter Quest, which at this point is like from Blacklist Games, which I don't believe is actually a company anymore, although I think the designers, the Sadler brothers, are about to work on another game together. I remember seeing something about that. I was like, oh, that's interesting. So Alter Quest, you can see I have it for trade. This one it's their modular deck system. Let's take a good old gander. Their modular deck system, this might look familiar if you've ever played Hero Quest. And what that means is you pick, like in this case, you pick like a quest, a major enemy, and then a third thing. There's always like 3 decks that you pick, and from a variety of each. So you're gonna have a different combination of stuff. And this works great in Street Masters and Brook City. And this was like their 3rd big box one that they were coming out with. And I'm like, oh, a fantasy one in this setting? That's going to be awesome. And it has a lot going for it. Like, it's not a bad game by any means. You have your unique hero that has his unique deck and different ways to play that can be really neat. Different quests and objectives you have to meet throughout the the game. And then different enemies, so it hits all those same beats that Street Masters and Brook City does, but there's just something about it that makes it difficult to get to the table. Like, I don't know, I'm not as engrossed into the story or into the system as I am with those other two, and I'm not really sure why. They did have, is that a picture? Yeah. They did have like 3D elements to it, like with terrain. So like there's this thing here, and then there's a cauldron over there, and a horde pile over there. So every room you walked into would have one of those at random that you can interact with, and that was kind of neat. But I think overall it felt kind of flat. And yeah, I do still own it, but probably wouldn't be too keen on playing it. And I have recently played Street Masters because I'm like, is that going to be the same thing? Am I going to have that same feeling that about this one that I do about Ultra Quest? And the answer is no. Street Masters is still, I think, their best one. A lot of fun, extremely dynamic, and just kind of it's just more exciting and short paced. This is also kind of long too. So yeah, that was my number 10 in 2020. Number 9 is a game that I actually have come around on that I enjoy after multiple playthroughs. Also, just showing a friend of mine this game because an expansion had come out. Now, we didn't like the expansion, but we do like the base game, and that is Tekhenu. Obelisk of the Sun. One of Board and Dice's T-Series games, which Board and Dice has seemed to kind of branch out more with a bunch of games. Still doing their T games every now and then, their newest one being Tilatum. And yeah, so Tekhenu, like, initially didn't work for me on, like, after, like, kind of, like, playing it a couple times that year. But as time has went on, because I like to own all the T games, I do own all the T games, and yeah, this one is just extremely solid. One of the few that has a ton of just strategies if you're looking for a very heavy worker placement, with dice worker placement, kind of. That, I mean, and the thing of it is it's these cards like that are like instant benefits or like a special power that are yours, and then the use of the different gods and their special powers is very neat. And someone painted their obelisk, which is really cool. But yeah, the fact that this obelisk rotates, and that's going to determine the different dice that are going to be available, because you have to keep a balance on positive and negative dice, which the negative ones are like the brown ones in here, and then the positive ones are the light ones on the outer ring. So, because you also want to take higher value dice, but then it's like, oh, that's going to throw off balance, and then, ooh, there's a really negative one and that I can take. So you have to keep that in mind. And different towers, what are they called? These pillars that you build to really ramp up in victory points. There's a lot going on in this one. and it is board and dice, so it's almost you come to expect that from them. Yeah, and I think that they kind of, I wouldn't say knocked it out of the park, because out of the T games, um, this one would probably still be towards the bottom. Not at the bottom, but I mean, that's just like, okay, well, all the T games are great, so being at the bottom, you're still really good. Yeah, because I like Teelatum better than this one. I like Tawantinsuyu way more than this one. Teotihuacan, I like this one. This would probably beat, uh, this would beat, oh, Terracotta Army, and there was another one that they had that I'm drawing a blank on. I gotta find it now. Okay, I haven't played Trismegistus, so that one doesn't count. But it was called Boop, Boop, Boop. Oh, man. Not Teelatum. Wow, I'm totally drawing a blank. I'll find it. It's right here. It's obvious. It's right here. It's right. Well, I can't find it. I thought it was a T game. Tabanusi. Told you I'd find it. Yeah, Tekenu would beat Tabanusi. So it's better than Terracotta Army and Tabanusi for me. So, but those are still really good too. Okay, well that was number 9. Number 8 I was actually just talking about, and that is Viscounts of the West Kingdom. This has actually gotten some love in the past 3 years, getting 2 expansions in a big box storage system. And both the expansions are great. I've done a review over both of them, so you can go see my thoughts on those, but they're amazing. They're not amazing if you combine them together and make the game 4 hours long, so don't do that, but play one at a time. Yeah, this one has grown on me quite a bit. I think like I just said, the expansions are awesome. I love the deck. The market system, I guess, is kind of what it is, where like you have your deck that you're building, and then your cards just kind of flip out and rotate, and then get various powers depending on, you know, if they're out in your row, or if they're on a certain icon. I love the rondelle element of using movement to go up and then build buildings, or get these cards, or go down to the bottom to put them into this area control castle thing, or getting these tiles. It's, I mean, it's just so great. Like, and that's kind of like, you can almost see my taste in Euro games change over the years, because these are the games that I'm leaning towards. Board and Dice, Mind Clash, and Garphill are like the top 3 Euro game publishers that I'm gonna lean way more towards than heavier ones like Vita Lasarda, or I don't know the publisher for one of the ones we'll talk about later. But not that those games are bad by any means, it's just more, this just feels more digestible now than trying to trudge through and understand the workings of a genius. So it's like, yes, I can understand your game, but do I want to put in the effort when I could play this, something like this, that gives me that same feeling? And Viscounts does that. And 7.9 makes me sad. I am curious though. We're not going to be talking about Paladins, but I just want to see the score. Boo! No, 7.9 to 8.0 is basically the same thing. Anyway, my number 7 for 2020 is a game that I have not played all that much of, and it is getting a sequel that I didn't care about, and that's Tidal Blades. Eventually I'll type it correctly. Heroes of the Reef. So I do still own this game, but I never play it. It is a part 1, and their part 2 is going to be coming out at some point. That's supposed to be like a dungeon crawler. For some reason, it was like wickedly expensive, and I'm like, yeah, I'd rather spend my money on other stuff, so I don't know if I'll get part 2 played. But part 1, this game is gorgeous, and this has like a world that is enticing to get into. Like, I love the kind of Olympic Games. You're trying to prove yourself to become a Tidal Blade and defend the reef from monsters. A lot of different elements of where you're going to place your workers to at different spots to get various tokens and different kinds of dice so that you can eventually go to the reef. If I ever find one, these pictures are so damn difficult to navigate. I almost wish they had like a different view that you could see it in grid instead of this row. Is that gonna? Sure, that'll work. But yeah, I almost wish they also had a board, but instead of these different pieces here. But yeah, you can go to these various locations to complete the games, do races. I think there's like a waterfall thing over here. To your character's strengths, you have different dials that you are trying to increase that will offer you different rewards and different benefits as it goes up. All together, different types of dice, blue, yellow, and then leveling them up to go fight and gather a lot of victory points for training. And that dice system, that upgrading dice system was new at the time, but I know a lot of people were turned off by it because it's like you do all this build up to go fight and a lot of your dice just go away, so you kind of have to do it again and again. But yeah, I haven't played this one a whole lot. I do still own it. I did play this. I did play this year, and it did remind me that it's good, but it is kind of. It almost feels like, oh man, this needs to be one more round, or it felt like kind of short, where it's like I am almost there from being amazing or being fulfilled, and yeah, I just kind of look at it and I'm like, oh yeah. So, not a bad game. I do still own it. My figures are painted, which is great. This is a really cool world, and maybe when part 2 comes out, I'll try and get a copy to see if I want to stay in the Tidal Blades universe. I don't know. But yeah, that is my number 7. Number 6, dear God, number 2020 was almost like a year of games I haven't touched in a while. Number 6 is a game I do still own, and I do really like it. But this is another one that I can't just, and that's the problem I'm noticing now, is like these Kickstarters are kind of like you can't just really pop them open and play. At least I can't because I'm trying to retain information of current games I'm playing. But number 6 is Dark Rituals, Malleus Maleficarum. So this was actually, by the time I got it, I was like, what the fuck is this game about? And it's about witches, which is a theme that is like never touched on, I feel like. And this game does a really cool job of replicating that really dark fantasy witch villainy like that you would expect in this type of setting. And I was like, okay, cool. That's starting to ring a bell. And then I was reading the rules. This is also when I got it back then. And I was like, oh, this is a one verse many game. Those aren't made anymore. Like, I don't count hidden movement games, like, where it's like one person's hiding and the other. It's like, I guess that is one verse many. But it doesn't, like, I do count them. So it's like that one's hidden movement. This is one verse many. What I mean by that is one person is playing the witches, and their various powers. They're controlling all the monsters, and then the other players are controlling the heroes. Yeah, these guys. Like this gives off, man, like the witches remind me of the sisters in The Witcher, and the heroes kind of give me like oh man, like a Lord of the Fallen or Witcher, because I know they have Geralt, which is literally Geralt from The Witcher. I guess The Witcher is a really good kind of overall description, but I was kind of thinking of like the video game Blasphemous is kind of what I was thinking. But yeah, like I was gonna play this not too long ago, like on a whim. Like my buddy and I were just trying to think of a game to play, and I was looking to set up, but it just like, oh, okay, there's a bunch of bags here, and I don't really remember how to play, so I'd have to learn how to play, and it's like that's gonna take up more time. So let's just play something we already know. But I do really still like this game. I think that the level up system of the heroes is really cool, using like a grimoire book And this has that same element of the more the heroes do, the more that the one person gets to do. And that was in another game called Level 7 Omega Protocol. And it's also in another game called, it's by Portal Games, Stronghold. And I really love that kind of back and forth where it's like, you're right, you guys can get all of that done. That's going to cost a lot of gems, which are going to come to me when it's my turn. Just that decision where it's like, is that almost like risk reward? Like, do we do all this badass stuff? And if we do, is like, can we overcome what the one person is going to get to do? That's a really awesome like balancing system, I think. And this game, I mean, has a 2.88 rating. It's not a heavy game to be able to understand. It's just like one of those in the whim of the moment. It's like, I just don't want to learn the game again, relearn it. So, yeah, Dark Rituals, really cool, unique theme that is just not touched on enough. So that was number 6 for 2020. And there we are. 2020 was the first year that I owned every single game for that year. At least, sorry, not every single game. On the back end, even though 2 of them I've been trying to get rid of, but still have them. And then we go to 2019. So 2019, number 10 was. And this one is another game I actually played recently. Criminally underrated and also not supported at all. And that is Hadara. This is the ugly Trivial Pursuit cover. I have the cool one. That's this one. Hadara, I remember when it came out, everyone's like, this kills 7 Wonders. 7 Wonders is dead. And then it's like, Hadara? No, never heard of it. It's like, well, it was supposed to be the 7 Wonders killer, if you believed anyone in that given year. It's not. It's not, but it is really good. I believe if this game had been supported as much as 7 Wonders, it might have stood a chance of being in that conversation. But no. I think it got like some very minor expansions that are like impossible to get. However, this is still a slice civilization building game. You are utilizing cards of these various colors here to increase your track of food, culture, knowledge, and military strength to be able to get these tokens that are all worth victory points. And you might be thinking, oh, well, that's just kind of super basic. But you have a faction, so like this dragon faction that's down here, allows you to draw from a very specific deck. And whenever you pick a card, like, so you draw from the deck and then like you choose which card you want to keep and which card you want to get rid of. But the card you're going to get rid of is actually going to be available to your opponents at a later time. So whenever you're thinking of which one you want to keep, it's like, but you also have to think about what you're giving up. And this wheel here will rotate, so you will eventually be drawing, of course, from the different decks. But I really like that element of kind of maybe seeding the discard pile, because maybe you maybe you wanted both, and maybe it can come back around to where you can get both if someone doesn't take it. That was just really cool. You can go ahead and explore these islands. You can just kind of see why people think it was a 7 Wonders killer, because it has card drafting, it has these tracks that are more open knowledge about money and military and culture and food, because you needed to, that was a resource you had to spend. Yeah, this one is extremely solid. I do still own it. Very easy to jump in and play. It's just a shame that it did not get as much love as it deserved. Yeah, because these cards would have, these are what it would increase your tracks by, and then how much they cost, how many victory points they gave you. So very easy to jump into and play. Just like 7 Wonders, but 7 Wonders still actually gets expansions. So that was number 10. Number 9 is a game I definitely do not own, and I'm going to be completely honest, because I can say this, 4 years later, I don't remember anything about it, and that is Court of the Dead. I remember this game being gorgeous. Like, oh man, is it beautiful. Like, whenever you talk about a Kickstarter product, like their insert was amazing, their cards were amazing, their metal coins were amazing. Like you want to talk about production quality, Court of the Dead knocked it out of the park. Miniatures were amazing. I just don't really remember this game. I remember I played it multiple times in 2019 and never touched it since then. Like it was like, okay, 2019's over, time to completely move on. And I don't know why. Like I remember this game just being really cool at that time, like the various unique, yeah, like I don't want to say gods, but like kind of like that Rising Sun Blood Rage where it's like, oh boom, I'm going to have this very special massive miniature to place on the board and use their special abilities. I remember it being area control. You were also trying to vie for these guilds. There were 3 guilds, 2 different types of guilds that had benefits of being in the lead for. But I don't really remember how the game was played at all. So you can kind of see why I don't own it anymore, because it was just not getting played. So yeah, that's Court of the Dead, Mourner's Call. And the other thing, and we'll definitely be talking about this, um, especially in the 2018 through 16, and a little bit here, is your games are only going to continue to get love when they get love. Like when the company provides expansions or support, that's going to give, with so many games that come out every year and so many great ones that come out every year, that even if your game's really good, like Court of the Dead, I do remember really, really liking and being surprised by it. But whenever you don't do anything to kind of bring my attention back to you, I'm going to focus on the games that do get that, or the newness. It's going to be a brand new game, like the next one we'll talk about. Well, that I guess, yeah, the next one we'll talk about. Then it's like, oh, well, then, and that keeps getting support, so I keep wanting to play it, and then I keep getting reminded of how great it is. And you get that repetition so that you can continue playing your game outside of that. I don't know. If you have a flash in the pan game kind of like this one, it's like, yeah, that's awesome, and it's really pretty. All right, I'll put it on my shelf and I'll play something else. I don't know. That's kind of my 2 cents. Number 8 is certainly not a flash in the pan, one of the most successful games of this year, and that is Wingspan. Like, Wingspan has done so much for the board game industry, basically revolutionized and kickstarted the nature genre, which I am all for. Like, I really love this genre. That you just continue to get fantastic games, and Wingspan just, I mean, what can I say about it that hasn't already been said? It's fantastic. Its expansions are great, except for Asia. I thought I basically got yes, that's not even in here, which is interesting. Oceania expansion, awesome. European expansion, awesome. Asia expansion, I have basically for the Asian birds. Didn't really like anything else about it, but wonderful engine builder, Tableau builder about birds with thousands of different copies, different types of birds at this point. They released the nesting box, which is just a massive storage organization for it, which whenever you fill that out, you're like, oh, surely it's done. And there's a lot of room in that box left. So I would imagine that they're still going to be doing all the continents. So they've done Oceania, Europe, and Asia. So they still got, theoretically, Antarctica, Africa, and South America are the 3 left. Yeah. So we'll see what they do. I mean, they'd be dumb to just quit pumping. Like, it's like, hey, that's like printing money. Yeah, Wingspan is phenomenal. Very much own it. So that was number 8. That probably would have been higher. Like if I were to like redo these, most likely the placements of these games would be different. Number 7 is a game that I actually do not own anymore. And this is one, I know I just said there hasn't been a game that I've gotten rid of that That is true. Like a game that I've gotten rid of, I haven't been like, oh, why did I do that? But there have been games I've gotten and I'm like, I'll probably buy that again at some point in the future, and that's true for this one. So that is Edge of Darkness. We were just talking about John D. Clare and Dead Reckoning with his card crafting system. Edge of Darkness is more the spiritual successor to Mystic Vale. Because it still does that card crafting system, and that's the crux of the game. Like, basically, he added worker placement. But there is, again, tons of expansions for this. They just released a new one last year, but not counting the Guild's Power Pack, but the Cliffs of Cold Harbor, Sands of Dunestar, and Emissaries of the Vale all added new locations, therefore new cards to this game. And that's just going to give you, especially in a card game, tons of variety. Like, that's why my favorite kinds of games are card games, because it's like, well, I'll never run out of stuff to do in this, especially if they're supported. So, Edge of Darkness, I will most likely go out and get. The fact of the shared deck building or the shared card crafting is so cool with this dice tray that looks like someone painted, and that's pretty dope. With monster threats and like you actually going out and getting rewards for, killing these monsters, overcoming their attack value and getting rewards for it. And because the cards that you build, the reverse side are the monsters, so the stronger your card is, the stronger the enemies are. But I don't know what that is. Is that the table that they're playing on? So like, anyway, yeah. So the Edge of Darkness thing, having the cards tied to the locations is really cool. Some requiring you to place workers elsewhere to get benefits for. It's really good. I like it a lot. It just also wasn't really getting played all that much. The solo variant is pretty good, but I think it excels more at a multiplayer game. So yeah, number 7. Number 6 is a game I do own, but I also never get it played for the very reason I just kind of talked about, and that is Black Angel. Oh man, what a gorgeous game. What a gorgeous, gorgeous game. Like, it's so cool, but the reason why I haven't touched it is because I can't find anyone to play it with me. Like, this one is in the middle of that, kind of heavier than like the Garfield and Board and Dice, but a little bit lighter than Vital Lasarda games. So it's in that weird niche of, okay, like I remember I need to remind myself how to play it, and it is relatively intuitive. Like, it's not like a bunch of different rules. Like, honestly, I can find games like Midara or Aeon Trespass Odyssey more complex than these, just because there's a ton of little things to remember. This one doesn't have that, just more iconography than anything. Uh, but yeah, like the people I did play this with throughout 2019, I don't see anymore because I have moved since then. But I remember they didn't really care for it, but I really liked it because this was like the sequel to Troyes, where it's dice work replacement, but your dice aren't necessarily yours. So whenever you roll them, if you roll high, other people can give you resources to use them. But you have these little robots that you can have that you send out on this board, the secondary hyper beam board, to go out and explore on planets, and set up for to get victory points or resources or some other type of benefit if it happens to fall off and you've created like a relationship with the planet there or something. There's a lot going on here because you were also being attacked by, I don't remember what the enemies were called. Does it say? It's probably something stupid. Anyway, yeah, you were being attacked by some type of alien race that would break down the Black Angel ship, and you'd have to go repair it, and because it could be destroyed. Yeah, this one it looks great, but I do remember everyone clamoring for this game whenever it came out. I think that year for Gen Con, this was the first game I went out and got. So, still really good. I own it because I do really like it, but I just need to find someone to play it with me. But then again, if if Voidfall by Mindclash is as good as, I'm hearing, there might not even be a reason to go back and play this one. But that remains to be seen. So yeah, that was number 6 for Black Angel for 2019. So yeah, that year I don't have at least the back end again. I don't have 2 of those games. Yeah, awesome. So then we go into 2018. 2018, kickstarting it off with a fantastic game that is no longer getting as much love as it was initially, and that is Detective Modern Crime board game. This one I really, really like. Like the fact of it being modern and you can actually use like the internet and Google, and you had like the website that they created for this to cross-examine like fingerprints and stuff like that, was just so cool. Uh, the writing was done really well. The cases were in depth. I love these kinds of games, these whodunit mystery style games, and it supported it in a decent amount, like the LA Crimes expansion. Then they did these standalone ones where different designers kind of wrote a case. Rob Davio did Signature Series, Dig Deeper, which was really cool. And then the Petty Officers wasn't that great. I don't remember who designed that one. But they kind of fell off on doing that. I'm guessing because Petty Officers didn't do awesome. But I thought that was a cool idea. But then they kind of branched off using the same system. They went to, Batman Everybody Lies, which is the same game, but it's Batman. And then they went and did the Vienna Connection, which is the exact same game, but set in the Cold War. And then they also did the Detective, I think season 1. No, I don't remember what it was called. Detective Modern Crime board game. Yeah, season 1. Yeah, and these were kind of like their own unique cases inspired by various things. One of the cases in here they said was inspired by Knives Out. So I really like this game, but you can only play it as much as they want to keep writing cases, and these don't have that many cases. It's not like a Sherlock Holmes game where they give you 10 of them in a box. This had 5. So they just needed to keep pumping it out, and I think they're done. Like, it doesn't sound like they're going to keep making any more, which is a shame because I thought they did a really cool and unique job by making you feel like a modern detective. That was number 10. Number 9, was actually shocking for me for the for what is actually at number 9, because it is rapidly risen, especially my top 100, and that is Everdell. But you also got to think about it. Everdell didn't have as much support, obviously, the year it came out, and has gotten tons of it since then. So many expansions. And a massive deluxe box, like what is it called? Everdell. Yeah, the complete collection. Yeah, it's so gorgeous. The art is fantastic. The expansions, they're all great. Like they're all really really good. Uh, that you just have tons of content for it. With it being a worker placement game that is paced by the players, by how efficient you are, and the cards that you got that you're going to build in your tableau, and it's like, okay, now this card allows me to play stuff for free. I can use these resources to get this, which then gives me more resources. And I haven't even placed my workers yet. It just sings for me. And I mean, I obviously have the complete collection that just has a bunch of various ways to play. like I mean the Pearlbrook expansion is probably the weakest, but that was also their first one, and then they just ramped up in excellency from there. So yeah, shocker that it was number 9 in 2018, but kind of makes sense whenever you're comparing it then and there instead of um, obviously talking about it, 5 years later. Then we go on to number 7. No, sorry, number 8, which, uh, yeah, I mean, this game is fantastic too. Super thematic, a little bit cumbersome to play also because there's a lot of pieces you have to put together, and that is Nemesis. If you ever want to play Alien, the game, this is it. If you want to really, truly feel what it's like to be uh, in the Alien movie, this is going to give you the best feeling. Like the sense of exploration and horror elements, and kind of like always looking over your shoulder, just really is captured in this. And the fact that this game could have a trader is really, really cool. And I love the fact that you get to play a little bit of the game before making that decision, because everyone's given a public and private objective, and whenever the first alien shows up, which is going to be quick, but not like too quick. When it shows up, that's when people pick, okay, you are in that room with the alien, and my objective needs you to be killed. Guess I'm going that. And you might not have chosen that if that wasn't the case, but so that's what you're trying to do. And I actually really like this at a lower player count, because the more players, the quicker the ship gets explored, so it kind of just becomes a little bit of going from various locations and just waiting. So I love the noise elements. I love the way that the intruders show up. I love the trader elements. This game can be long, like just almost always will be long, but the experience, I think, kind of overshadows the length. And it's gotten a bunch of support. Like, as instead of the intruders, you can have carnomorphs, I think is what they were called. Where are they? Yeah, carnomorphs, and then they have the void seeders, void seeders, so different alien races you can throw in. Aftermath is like a post-game expansion where it's like a different ship showing up to the ship, kind of like Dead Space, where you show up and you're like, oh, the necromorphs killed everyone, but you're figuring that out. Then they made Lockdown, which I never got because it sounded like it was just kind of like its own standalone thing. But they're about to do another Nemesis thing that they just announced called, it's Retaliation. It is. So Nemesis Retaliation, which I have not looked into. Highly trained Marines entering the alien nest with strict orders and the most advanced tools available. But will they be prepared enough to face the unrelenting horde that awaits them? There you go. And maybe based off of this game found thing, I'll be able to get Lockdown, because I do just kind of want to own everything for it. Nemesis is great. Don't play it all the time, but when I do, I'm like, this experience is top notch. So that was number 8. Number 7 also has gotten quite a bit of love. I think they're probably done with it, but they gave enough content, and that is Chronicles of Crime. So I always had a difficult time deciding which one of this one and Detective that I liked better. Turns out in 2018, I liked this one better. But I remember doing my top 100, and it felt like they always kind of swapped on which one, and it might have just been based off which one I played more recently. But Chronicles of Crime got a lot more successful expansions, I think, like adding in, the Noir and the Red View, Stranger Things, and then they did Chronicles of Crime 1400, 1900, and 2400, so different periods in time for their cases. But integrating an app that gives you a VR-like experience is very, very cool. And this one is, out of all of them, is the one that feels the most alive. And what I mean by that is you actually have locations you can go to and cards that represent like people that are currently at that location. And so as time goes on, like if you go to Scotland Yard and that guy's there, and then you leave and that's 2 hours later and you come back, he won't be there. And as you get more information, like, oh, hey, we actually, you said that you didn't know anything about our necklace, and then you can come back and question them about the jewelry that you didn't have before, and that's going to give you more information. Not any of the other games really give you that. It's all very static that you kind of have to read between the lines, but this game does allow you to go back to people with info, and I think that as time has gone on, Chronicles of Crime does supersede Detective for me. But that doesn't mean that the Detective Monocrime board game is any worse. They're both still great in my eyes. So that was number 7. And then number 6 is another game I do not own. And this is actually one out of his designs that I most likely will go out and get, and that's because it's my favorite of his games, and that is CO2 Second Chance. CO2 Second Chance, like I said, I got rid of all my Vita Lasarda games just because didn't ever really feel like playing them. And this one I did sell to a friend of mine that him and I initially played it, and we were like, enraptured with it. But this game is brutal. It's so hard. It's so hard to win. By design, it's completely like designed to almost make you feel like you lose, and whenever you win, you don't really feel like you won. There's a lot going on in this. The Second Chance one made it cooperative instead of competitive, although it did still have a competitive variant that you could do. But trying to deal with different countries' demands and emissions, and then by building various types of what do they call it, like green energy, like recycling or solar and water and deforestation and all that, while also meeting the global demands and sending people to be trained to go talk at like press conferences. There's a lot going on, and it is so hard. But I love this game. Again, so I don't own it, not because I just quit kind of liking it. It was more just a buddy of mine wanted it, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of getting rid of all his games anyway, so I'll just throw this in the mix. But yeah, this one, more so than his others, I will probably get again. And that's that. That was 2018. So for only one game I don't own, but most likely will get again. And then we go into 2017. And out of all the ones I'm talking about, this year, 2017 is probably my favorite. I think it is. I think all the games I'm about to talk about, at least in the back 5, I like the most. And we're starting with my number 10, which would 100% be higher. There is no way that this would have hit 10. It would most likely, hold on, give me just a sec. Let me take a look at what I had at number 1 for 2017, because okay, it would have probably been number 3 right now. Right now it would be number 3, and that is Too Many Bones. Like, this game is fantastic. It is, and it just released another expansion, not Undertow, Unbreakable. Like this, I mean, this is kind of a lifestyle game here, honestly. Like, so many nemesis, so many gear locks, tons of missions, like cards that you read through, different ways to play. I mean, hell, they even have a create your own gear lock kind of thing, or no, it's not create your own. It's a create your own nemesis, I think. A campaign mode, the depth of the gear locks when you're playing them is insane. The amount of enemy variety and the puzzles that are going to come up from that, depending on who you're playing with, like which gear locks you're playing with, you're gonna solve that puzzle in a completely different way. It's fantastic, and they've just made So much content. Like I just hit the expansion thing, and it's like, oh, yep, there's all the different, all the gear locks. I mean, Riffle alone just is insane. Different promos. A lot of these are just gonna be gear locks because you can buy them individually. Like Undertow and Unbreakable are kind of like their own standalone expansions. They have a pop-up book story that you can do. I have almost everything for this game. I don't have the child. I think it's like a very mini kind of promo thing. I don't have that, but I have everything else, and it's excellent. I love being like, which gear lock am I gonna play now? Like, ooh, I'll just pick this one, and I'll pick a random nemesis and see how this is gonna go. Yeah. So Too Many Bones blows my mind that it was number 10 in 2017. But 2017 was a stacked year. Like it was insane. Like probably, oh man, with the past 10 years, I'd probably say 2017 is the best. Like in terms of my style of game. So then we go to number 9, and that is Dinosaur Island. Having since released Dinosaur World, which what is that sitting at? 7.4. Okay. They're virtually the same game. I I have them both. I think I do prefer Dinosaur Island just because I kind of like the pacing of it better. I like the 4 mini games that do kind of tie in together. But I do have actually a friend who likes Dinosaur World better because he felt like it flowed more. Like he can kind of strategize by seeing everything all at once instead of the different games that felt they were isolated, but you had to make leaps to get them to connect in strategy. I'm like, sure, that makes sense. They were the same game, just painted up a little bit different. Yeah, you want to play Jurassic Park? This is it. Like if you're making a theme park with dinosaurs, hiring people for various abilities, getting technologies in your corporation thing, putting concession stands and attractions in your board, uh, gaining money for people coming to see it. It's this game. In terms of presentation, I actually think Dinosaur World is better because it feels more like a theme park and the fact that you have to give people tours and stuff. But I'm not talking about Dinosaur World, I'm talking about Dinosaur Island, which was phenomenal when it came out and kind of, at least to me, put Pandasaurus on the map. They haven't really um, like hit the nail on the head for me for a bit. I have heard people say Dinosaur Island Roar and Write kind of kills Dinosaur Island for them. I'm not entirely like disagreeing with that because Dinosaur Island Roar and Write, while I thought was just a dumb gimmick, I was like, this is pretty damn good. So I can see why some people would rather play this than this, but I just kind of like the meatier, bigger uh, board game. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of like what's kept Pandasaurus afloat because they, I don't know. I think they did Skate Summer, which I thought was okay. The loop is really good, but it is kind of like the Dinosaur Island games that I think is like, ooh, Pandasaurus. I mean, hell, their icon is a dinosaur, so they clearly love Dinosaur Island and Dinosaur World. So yeah, that was number 9 in 2017. Number 8 is a game that I do still like, but I never play it because it's something else, and that's Seventh Continent. So if people are saying they don't like Seventh Continent, I can see why. But you cannot deny that Seventh Continent did not pave the way for a lot of narrative-driven campaign games to do what Seventh Continent did, but make it better. Because Seventh Continent, which is still awesome, I still love the theme and the lore around it, and the sprawling map is like one of the best innovative designs I've seen in my hobby or in my tenure in this hobby. Uh, but like having a location that you can see things that you can interact with and hidden numbers that you can interact with, and then you move on, and all the cards connect to create this world that you're exploring. I've always now, not always, I now describe Seventh Continent as kind of a survival exploration game versus a kind of a narrative-driven game. Because I mean, it does have stories to tell, but not really. Your whole goal is to try and survive. Hunt, gather meat, make a fire, cook it, survive, explore, gather your information, try and solve the curse that sent you to the island in the first place. Craft gear that's going to help you overcome obstacles. All that is fantastic. What Seventh Continent does is still some of the best, but you have other games now that kind of take that core concept and improve upon it. In terms of the exploration, like Tainted Grail improves upon it. Aeon Trespass Odyssey improves upon it. But you can't give those games any credit because they literally took it from Seventh Continent. And this has tons of stuff too, like the expansions for it that either add new curses to deal with or new obstacles to overcome. There's tons of story here, but at the same time, 412 people, 71% say it's best solo, and I completely agree. Maybe best too if you just want to share an experience with someone, which is how I normally play games like this. I'd much rather play, I know Tainted Grail is like, everyone says it's best solo, but it's like I want to share the story with someone. I don't want to just sit there by myself and do it. But yeah, Seventh Continent is kind of, it's a commitment to play. And then they had that's not even the stuff here, because then they had Seventh Continent, What Goes Up Must Come Down expansion that just added, I guess this is the expansion, but that added like a whole new tier of literally exploring up in the clouds and having events up there. Honestly, if there was a way to make this game a little less digging through cards, like where it's like, okay, we need to go here, and then you're like rifling through the cards. If there was less that and more just, I know there's no better streamlined way to do that, but it would be a little bit more immersive. So yeah, that's Seventh Continent. I haven't touched it in a very, very long time, but I do still own it. And that's another game I see a lot of people trying to sell, but no one wanting to buy. And I think this version of Seventh Continent will be completely dead whenever Seventh Citadel comes out, which is supposed to be their actual adventure game. And number 7. This is a game I actually don't own. I didn't own back then, but I'm getting this year at this time. Very excited. And that is Mythic Battles Pantheon. And Ragnarok, because that's what's going to be the brand new one, but that clearly wasn't out whenever I made this list. Mythic Battles Pantheon is the best skirmish game I have ever played. And I'm not kidding. I don't like skirmish games. I'm starting to realize that. I keep trying to find one that works, but they always come off as extremely random and very annoying. Or that's pretty much it. Because a lot of skirmish games, to me, feel like I'm going to try and be tactile about this or strategic, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to move over here, I'm going to use these cards and this ability to get over here, and I certainly hope that dice let me succeed. They didn't, so I wasted all that time. And oh wow, and you just turn around counterattack and you rolled super well. That's cool. Mythic Battles, while having dice, does such a cool battle, like combat mechanism that kind of wipes randomness out the window for me. While it is still random, you don't feel as like all in or not at all. Kind of like, so whenever you're rolling dice, it does this weird math thing I'm not going to explain. But essentially, if you're attacking something, you're almost guaranteed to at least get one hit. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but when you're attacking gods, like if I'm going to go up and punch Zeus in the face, at least hitting him once, which is a permanent damage, is better than not at all. and sometimes you might hit him for 3 damage, and it's like, oh shit, like now he's fucked up. Uh, but at least when you roll, if you do all this maneuvering and trying to take down Zeus in this case, and you roll and you're like, okay, not as good as I wanted, but I still hit you for 1 damage. Like, you can, at least I can move on with that. But again, the fact you don't even have to win by killing the other person's god. That's just one of 2. You can get those, whatever, those Oliphant or those nodes here. You can get them back to your base. You can win that way. The amount of gods and heroes and mobs you can get just add for tons of strategy. There's so much content for Mythic Battles Pantheon. Like, oh well, now they're just showing Ragnarok in here. But yeah, different battlefield types, 3D terrain. Let's see, here we go. Yeah, the different heroes and the different gods and the different monsters. Like, I know there's some maps you can be on that actually are water fights that you can have like the Hydra with you that's going to attack. It's there's a ton of content. This isn't it. I'm like, what am I looking at? And then why I'm getting it all this year is because everything for Mythic Battles Ragnarok is going to be delivering. And I'm not going to talk about Ragnarok because that's obviously 2023, but it's the same game. It's just now Norse gods, monsters, and heroes, and you can combine the 2. So if you ever want to see what Odin and Thor, not Odin, what Odin and Zeus would be like in a fight, well, you can kind of recreate it here. Very excited, and they've even announced that they're going to do Mythic Battles Egypt next. So that's going to be pretty sweet. Yeah. That was my number 7. And number 6 is a game that I also very rarely play, but that is not really a knock on the game. That's just because it's a lot of commitment to play, but it's such an experience that I don't see myself ever selling this game. And that's Twilight Imperium 4th Edition. Came out in 2017. Jesus Christ, that was 6 years ago. I remember when this was announced at Gen Con. I think this was back when Fantasy Flight was kind of still its own thing and wasn't just under the umbrella of Asmodee. Back whenever Fantasy Flight, made a variety of games instead of just 2. Twilight Imperium, I mean, come on. It's the best 4X game out there. Like, I've done actually a video of ranking all the races with a friend of mine. This is his favorite game. I will say the reason why I tout this as the best 4X game is not because of its combat or its tech tree, although tech tree is really cool, or its races even. What this game has that none of the other ones do is politics. Woo! Politics! It's so good! No, but the fact that you actually can get laws and rules passed based off the planets that you own, so you can be like, I'm shit in combat, but boy oh boy, when politics is coming around, I have the most voting power. So you have a lot of sway in how many people are going to want to ally with you, to get like laws passed that change the rule for everyone, or you can vote for players that you can be like, yes, you now get this individual power. That's what has elevated Twilight Imperium 3rd Edition, because that's the first one I played, and 4th Edition, which just streamlined and balanced the game out way better. Yeah, it's fantastic. So that's Twilight Imperium 4th Edition. I will say, like I said, I don't play this game a lot, but when I do, it's like, bam, best game of the year. So yeah, that was my number 6 for 2017. And then we go to the last year I'm going to talk about, which is 2016. And yeah, let's jump right into it, which is actually, the number 10 is very interesting because I didn't. I did a video for the other one. I was going to say I just did a recording for this one, which I kind of did. One of the few run-throughs that I've done recently, but that is Pandemic Iberia. This was kind of like when they really started to do standalone pandemics. They had the Rise of Cthulhu, this one, and Fall of Rome. And then they kind of started doing like really offshoots, but this was still really encoded in the pandemic formula. And it's the best one. Well, this one, for traditional pandemic, I'd say is my favorite. But Fall of Rome, if you're looking for something that's not quite pandemic. This one is great. Looks gorgeous for what it is. Extremely difficult. Really kind of start flipping it on its head with the railroads you put down for maneuverability, because obviously you don't have planes to fly around. The fact that you're treating diseases instead of curing them, and it added little variants of like, hey, the yellow cubes are now malaria, and they have their own special rule versus uh, just being normal cubes, and you had one for each of the diseases. Yeah, it's it's extremely solid. Very hard to get. I guess they just didn't do a massive print run and made it almost impossible to get after that. But it's if you can get a copy of it, I highly recommend it. I do think most of the pandemics like that were kind of like offshoots. This one, the Cthulhu one, and Fall of Rome are really good. The only one I really hated was Rising Tide, but uh, but yeah, I mean, Pandemic is still exquisite, so you're gonna feel like in familiar territory just with new challenges to deal with. So that was number 10, Pandemic Iberia. Number 9 is a game that I very rarely still play, but uh, but I do own everything for, and that is Millennium Blades. Such a unique game, honestly. Like, if you what? I'm like alternate names that. If you were ever to do like a like, hey, what's the most innovative theme or unique theme that you've ever seen? Probably this. Probably this game that's like, hey, it's a card game about a card game. Like it's like whenever you go to a pre-draft for Magic, it's that, but it's not a pre-draft. It has like its own cards. Uh, like has its own market, and like yeah, these are all the different packs that you pick from, and you shuffle them in or you have them out so you can buy them, and then you have a general market of cards, and you're trying to build your own deck, but not like a 40 card deck. You're trying to think get 10 cards to go into battle, and you're just it's point based. It's very Euro-y. Like you're not actually using these to combat like Magic or anything like that, but the amount of content also for this game is insane. So many mini expansions. So yeah, it's the Millennium Blades Collusion is what I have, but all these mini expansions of various different decks, and it's really cool. Like this is one though that if you'd have to really try and exhaust it out. You play this every day. It's your only game. It just never gets touched because this is a game that's very difficult to find people who want to play it, because it's like, okay, do you like Magic? No. Okay, well maybe not. Maybe you won't like this one because you kind of have to be already in that zone. Uh, Also, one of the games that utilizes paper money in the best way, because you have these tape things that you just have like 5 or 10 pieces of the paper money that you tape together, so it's like a wad of money. Feels really good when you're actually paying it, but also not gross or shitty because you just have the wad and you drop that down instead of individual pieces. Yeah, like I think this one's super cool. I don't get to play it a lot, but I do still own it, and most likely will, because it's this one and BattleCon, like the level 99. Those games are the ones that I'm just kind of sticking with, because they're super expansive. Then we go to number 8. Number 8 is one of the best worker placement polyomino games out, and that is Feast for Odin. 2016, and yet still being touted as probably his best, which I would personally agree. I haven't played a lot of Uwe Rosenberg games, but the ones I have played, while still good, it's not Feast for Odin. And this one has a really negative stigma to it, just because this is the action board. And everyone's like, oh, it's the place with 56 actions or 50 plus actions. And it's like, yeah, you're right, but they're not like all solely unique It's not like, oh, out of those 50 actions, none of them are at all, related. Like you have categories, so it's like sailing. Here's the sailing action, and it just has like, oh, you can get this tile, or you can do this action, or this, and it just kind of gets exponentially better. And so it's like, yeah, you have different categories. Technically, they are individual worker placement spots, but like I find it to be still digestible. I love polyomino games, and I remember the first time playing this, I was thinking like I played it with my now wife. We weren't married back then, but where we look at it and she was like, "Oh, this actually wasn't that bad." It's like, no, not really. I also like the fact that you start in the hole, like for negatives, but as you get more tokens, you cover that up and slowly dig yourself out. That's just a nice little twist on the polyomino aspect, I think. Yeah, this one has a ton of content, ton of things to do. I also have the expansion for it, but I haven't tried it. But I do have the Norwegians expansion. So that was number 8 for 2016. Number 7, which is funny enough, this entire series, I feel like I'm slightly cheating because I just talked about another game that was in the same universe. But here it is, and that is Role Player. Obviously, it feels like I'm cheating because I'm talking about all these all at once instead of this coming out in 2016 and then me talking about Role Player Adventures in 2021, which is 5 years later. Holy shit. Anyway, Role Player, I remember when this came out, it was being compared to Sagrada a lot because they're dice placement games. And it's make a D&D character, but in a really cool way, like because they have like armor sets you can do, attributes and weapons and skills that all have different abilities. You do have a alignment track. You have your stats, and you have like what color dice you need. So you do have goals to make the optimized character based off the random cards that you were that you were given. I also love the fact that whenever you place dice, each of the attributes, strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, all have a different ability. That's like, oh, hey, whenever you place a die in intelligence, you can re-roll a die. If you place a die in con, you can plus or minus another die. That also added another twist to it that made it really good. Yeah, and going back, this game just gets even better when you know that the character you made can be put into an adventure game. It just elevates the whole thing. So it's like now if people are like, oh, should I get role player? It's like get everything. Like you feel like you're gonna miss out. And if you don't want to do the adventure stuff, you just want to do the Euro dice placement stuff, then at least get the expansion monsters and minions because it makes the game 10 times better. Like Fiends and Familiars, I like it, but Monsters and Minions is the one that I'm like, that's a must for role player. So kind of talked about it with Role Player Adventures, but it's like a bundle deal. Really good, really cool when it came out too. And the last one to talk about for this video is one of the greatest that ever came out that a lot of people will say. I actually have played this game recently. It was a guy I had met at a game day. This was his favorite game, and I dominated. It was disgusting. Not through any skill of mine. It was just the prelude stuff that was my setup that I'm like, I think I might just win, and that is Terraforming Mars. My build started off had to do with a lot of like plant generation, so I was almost always like turn 1 able to start planting. It was disgusting. And he says he plays a lot online, but he was talking about, he's like, yeah, if anyone saw you with that setup, they'd probably just wipe or scoop. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because why wouldn't you? If you're like, well, that's there you go. Anyway, Terraforming Mars, one of the greatest engine builders out there, and yeah, it still stands the test of time. Like even playing it, 7 years later, it's so good. The expansions that they had for it, most of them are awesome. Prelude is 100% a must. like cuts 5 full turns out of the game, makes you feel unique right out the gate, sets up long-term planning right from the get-go. The expansions Turmoil are still really cool. Colonies, I think, is the best one, and they're right now, at the time of this recording, on Kickstarter for more Terraforming Mars content. Like, I think a Prelude 2, so just more content for it. It's still getting support. They made a dice game. I haven't played this version, but apparently a smaller, streamlined version is Ares Expedition. It's, I mean, it's a household name at this point for Stronghold, not Stronghold. Well, it's Frick's Games, but I think Stronghold helped, if I'm correct. Anyway, yeah, Terraforming Mars would most likely be way higher. Just, I mean, in retrospect, but at the time I had it at number 6, so that is it. So, what did we learn from this? I guess I didn't mention it, but 2017, I own everything. I guess technically Mythic Battles I don't have in my possession right now, but it's basically on the way. So that one I won't count as a don't own. And 2016 I still own everything for that one. So there were, out of 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 games, I do not own My Father's Work, Solomon Kane, Edge of Darkness, Court of the Dead, and CO2 Second Chance. So 5 games I don't own for the past 7 years. Oops. So that is 1 out of every 7 games in this collection that I don't own. That's pretty impressive. Like, I think that just kind of goes to show when you talk about, like, because I didn't have that many in the first half, like the top 5, like I still owned most of them. It's just still rapidly impressive, and it doesn't seem to be like any of the dates mattered. Like you would think it could be flipped one of 2 ways. You could think, oh well, in 2020 you'd have less games, or you'd get rid of games from 2022, from a more recent year, just because you'd be focusing on the newness. But the more logical thinking in my mind is you'd get rid of older games to make way for new games, and that's just not the case. Like, the newer years, or the older years, I still own those. 2016, 2017, and 2018. 15 of those games I only don't own CO2 Second Chance, and that's because a friend of mine wanted it. So theoretically, when I was getting rid of all my Vita Lasarda games, I was gonna keep CO2. So, like, for 2016, 17, and 18, I actually would have I own all these games. Now, do I play them all the time? That's completely different. But this was kind of more of a experiment, I guess, to determine, like, if the hotness of games kind of makes you, like, fades away over time. Not really. I don't think so. Now, this is a very, 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 very small sample size, and I'm just one person. But it does make me feel better to know that I didn't tout these games as the best of the year, and then a couple of years later be like, yeah, I don't own any of them. I actually hate them all. No, I also really like most of these. The ones I don't own anymore, I still think are good games. I just don't own them for whatever reason. But anyway, that was it, everyone. That was the back half of games that I owned from 2016 all the way to 2022. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know which games of these you love, and other comments down in the comments below. But other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.